Allison.
I always wanted to play volleyball in college.
Cordova trying to dig it out of the board. And they score!
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Prep Zone. I am Brendan Randolph and I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by Brian Dole, a former basketball coach in the Fairfax area and our current host at the Hoopscast podcast. So Brian, how are you doing today?
Thanks, happy to be here. I do the Nova Hoopcast with Kevin Weir and another old coach friend of mine. And happy to be here talking basketball with you. It's a great time of year for basketball.
Right, it's certainly a great time for year for basketball. It's the holiday broadcast, and we've had another great week of basketball. As you guys know, we've got a lot of things to recap, a bunch of things to preview as well. And we'll start by going over some of the recaps. We've got the game between Gonzaga versus O'Connell, a good WCAC matchup. We've got the Bladensburg versus Richard Montgomery matchup in Maryland. We have some more matchups coming. The Bishop Ireton versus Bishop McNamara, another good WCAC matchup, real close game there. And last but not least, we've got the Whitman versus Bethesda Chevy Chase game. That one, we'll go into the previews. We've got the Purple Puck tournament that we're going to be talking about, which is going to be live on DMVSTREAM.COM on their Facebook page throughout the day on Friday. And last but not least, we've got the W.T. Woodson at West Potomac game, another really good matchup in the Nova area. And now we'll take a look at where to watch the Prep Zone. You can see it on Facebook Live as well as DMVSTREAM.COM, and then there are some of your channel options if you're going to watch the Prep Zone on TV. And now we'll go to a quick commercial break where BJ Kubaroulis will tell you how to get your play nominated on All Met Sports.
Hello everybody and welcome to an all-new season of Top Plays here at AllMetSports.com and WashingtonPost.com. I'm BJ Kubaroulis. All right, like the previous 3 seasons, we're continuing our exciting interactive high school basketball show, a show that allows you, parents, coaches, players, and fans to send in your video submissions for ranking in our Top 10 style weekly show. Each week, we'll reveal the latest highlights, dunks, sweet assists, and bizarre happenings from across the region. All you gotta do is tweet me the link. I'm at BJKoob, and remember, you gotta hashtag it AllMets. You can send in your Huddle, YouTube, Vimeo, really any video link, and we'll consider it for use in the upcoming episode of Top Plays. Remember to tune in every Monday to see if your video made it at AllMetSports.com. We'll see you soon.
Hello everybody and welcome back into the Prep Zone. Brendan Randolph here with Brian Doyle, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the sophomore sensations. And when you're a sophomore and you can crack the spot on varsity, it's a big time thing, because not only are you're a little bit young then, but you get a chance to get more experience, and that'll be a very valuable thing when you get older. So we're going to talk about some of the players who have been lucky enough to play varsity basketball as a sophomore, and we're going to start with West Potomac and their sophomore Daryl Mackey. So what did you think about him?
Well, I've seen them play a couple of times. Great player. He's the son of the former West Potomac coach. David Houston is the coach now. Coach before Coach Houston was Daryl Mackey's father, so that's the Daryl Mackey Jr., really part of a dynamic backcourt at West Potomac. You just saw his stats up there, and him and Khalil Williams-Diggins both do a tremendous job in the backcourt for West Potomac.
Right, they're a big-time team there, and they've also got their big man Serge Ekpuk, and they've been off to an incredible start so far. I believe they're 7-1, so just got to keep a lookout for them. And now we're going to go on to another sophomore for South Lakes, Cameron Savage, who has also been playing really well. So what do you think of him?
Well, I saw him play against, twice I saw him against Westfield. They took a loss to Westfield. I saw them play against West Potomac. We're just talking about West Potomac. Really tremendous quickness. He's not a big guy at all, but he's big in stature, the way he plays the game. He can shoot it, he can create, and get into the lane and distribute. And a nice threesome with him, Cherry, and Emmanuel Aguirre in the post for South Lakes. So those three against West Potomac's big three was a great game, and he's a kid we're going to continue to hear a lot about over the coming years.
Right, and I actually got a chance to see Cameron Savage play in games against Herndon. So, and I also got to see him play in a practice. So he's one of those guys that he definitely gets the entire team going, even if he's not particularly scoring himself.
Right.
He's a big-time facilitator for that team, and he gets everybody going. He makes sure everybody touches the ball.
Absolutely, unselfish player for sure.
Absolutely, definitely. And now we'll go on to our next player, which is Stonebridge's Evan Buckley, who, as you can see here, averaging 17.2 points per game, and he's also getting it done with assists and rebounds too.
Yeah, those are pretty gaudy all-around numbers for a sophomore, getting it done, like you said, on the boards, distributing the basketball. He's getting some Division I looks already. I think Rice was at his practice the other day. And they started out with a tough schedule. Their football guys were still busy, competing for a state title on the gridiron, so he had to carry them without some of his teammates who were still playing football. I give him credit. He just kept going and going. You see here by the highlights, he can get it done in a variety of ways. Creative player. He can get in the paint. He can shoot beyond the arc. You see him with the steal there in the finish. He can shoot pull-up jumpers, can use both hands. So really a good all-around player. And when you're an opposing coach looking at a scouting report on him, it's hard to find the weakness. Most high school players, you can find a weakness and attack them, whether you force them to the offhand or lay off of them or, make them put the ball on the floor. Evan Buckley is a challenge for opposing coaches because I don't know that there's a real weakness that you can attack, but certainly a great player.
Right, and I guess I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. So you said that he doesn't really have a weakness, but you're a former coach. So as a former coach, what would you have done to game plan against somebody like Evan Buckley?
Well, it's tough. I mean, it depends what I would have on my team. Mm-hmm. Obviously, somebody like that, you got to look at what he has around him, and if you have a versatile defender, maybe an athlete with some size, maybe you can put him on it. When he gives up the basketball as a point guard, maybe make it really tough for him to get it back and deny him. But we would probably need a couple of hours of video study before we make that final determination.
Yeah. So just going to talk a little bit more about Evan Buckley. So just when you've got somebody who can do as many things as he can do, how much easier does that make it for his teammates?
Oh, it makes everybody, like you said, everybody a little bit better. We saw what he does. He helps rebound the basketball. He distributes the ball. Ben Kling, who came in from the football team, first game back from football, he put up 20-something points, and I'm sure Buckley played a great role facilitating that. So he's the type of guy that when you coach him, he makes you sleep a little bit better at night when you're a coach.
Yeah, all right, and we'll go into our next sophomore, which is Kendall McHugh out of Chantilly. He's got 12.9 points per game, almost 13, and he's got 74% from the free throw line. So what do you think of him?
Yeah, he played a lot last year as a freshman. I'm at Centerville as an administrator and was on staff there for a few years, so I've seen him play. So really for him to get, we talked about how special it is for sophomores to get major minutes. He got major minutes as a freshman, and so that experience is just going to pay off as we move forward. He's a good all-around player, probably needs to gain a little more consistency on his jump shot. But again, I think he's the key to making them go. They have a lot of good pieces around him. They've got a really nice first five. They run a lot of sets, so he kind of plays quarterback out there for them. And another good all-around player. He scores 13, but you can see by watching this, the ball is in his hands a lot. There's a nice dish for a three to Kozlovka, I believe. So he also facilitates a lot and really kind of makes the Chargers go.
Right, and like as a point guard, you've definitely got to be the guy that, like you said, makes the team go. So just it's a huge thing for him. And like, how big is it to be a sophomore and be able to be the guy that makes the team go?
Well, it's big. It's more common now than it was, back in the day, back when I played and when I first started coaching. You never had freshmen playing up, and occasionally sophomores. You see it a lot more now than you used to, but still, a lot of times when you have that sophomore up on the varsity, sometimes that sophomore year is to kind of get experience, get your feet wet. Maybe towards the end of the season, you're really ready to contribute. The guys we're talking about today are maybe exceptions to that. There's certainly other sophomores on varsity rosters around the DMV, but not all of them play the role that these guys play. Are really instrumental players, carrying a burden for their team, starting, logging a lot of minutes. So, certainly bodes well for the future of these guys individually, but for their teams as well.
Right, and the last pair of sophomores that we're going to, actually no, not the last pair, we got a couple more to talk about. We're going to talk about Bryce Douglas of Centerville, who is a very good player. He's got 17 points per game, and he's also shooting around 75% from the free throw line. So what do you think of him?
Well, I bump into Bryce in the hallways. That's my day job is at Centerville High School. Bryce had transferred to Centerville, as you said, averaging 17 a game. So he's really off to a nice start for them. And they're off as a team. They're off to a good start. They're a little more athletic, a little more talented than maybe they've been. I think he's he probably needs a little help scoring. They're still trying to find a reliable second and third option. But he does a little bit of everything too. He can score the ball, but he can get in the paint and distribute the ball. And to come in and be, brand new to a program and boom, be averaging 17 right off the bat is impressive.
Right. So is there any kind of added pressure being like the transfer and having to score like as much as he has to score right away? Is there any added pressure with that, or?
Well, there could be. I mean, I think that just depends on the individual and depends on the program they're transferring into. Centerville, and again, I've been there for quite a while, hasn't been real successful in boys basketball. So for him to come in, there may be a little bit more of an expectation for him to try to kind of carry them to the next level of success. And they've been successful so far in their non-conference games, as opposed to if you're a freshman at a school that's got a long tradition of success, maybe there's not quite as much pressure on you to perform right away. But either way, Bryce Douglas and the other guys, we're talking about are certainly making their mark.
Right, and I think the last group that we've got are the Mitchell twins, Mikkel and Makai Mitchell. These two players are big-time cornerstone for McNamara inside, and you can see their numbers there. So what do you think of those two guys?
Well, I mentioned, a good point guard can help coaches sleep well at night. Having bookends like that, 6'9" guys, it looks like they together, that's nice right there.
That's huge.
They block over 4, almost 5 shots a game between the two of them. And so despite the fact that a lot of people say it's a guard's game nowadays, I'll take 6'9" bookends in the post any day. If you can control the paint, control the boards, and score inside as well, you're going to be in every game.
Right, and like you said, pretty much they dominate the inside. So when you're dominating the inside like that, just how much more difficult can it be for opposing offenses just to score against them?
Well, you better be knocking shots down from the perimeter. And I often, on the offensive end, I often compare this to, like in football, you want to establish your running game to set up your passing game. These guys establish the running game every time out by controlling the paint and probably open up a lot of opportunities on the perimeter for their teammates.
Yep, and that will do it for our sophomore sensations. And now we will go into a Coach's Corner segment with one of your old friends, Wakefield's Tony Bennett.
All right, so what I wanted to talk to you about today was just a little simple inbounds play that, we've been running since I've been at Wakefield. I actually stole it from a good friend of mine who I coach with at Washington Lee, Bobby Dobson. Bobby, I'm sorry if I'm giving away your play. This is a play that we call like a box set. What we want to do is we want to get our shooter on ball side with our big man here. So it's basically old school screen for the screener. So when we slap the ball, we want our 5-man to come up, hit hard. Our 2, he's going to come out here. It's going to draw the attention because he's a good shooter. My 3 is going to come, he's going to be my outlet in case we need to get the ball in. So 4 is going to pin his man right here, 1001, 1002. He doesn't get it. He's going to now reverse up and screen for 5. 5 is going to screen and roll to the basket. We should have him wide open there. If not, once 4 came and set that screen for 5, then 4 comes down. We have 4 on the option right there for a layup. All else fails, we get the ball, we throw it in up top, and then we set up our offense.
All right, and if you want to see the rest of that Coach's Corner segment, be sure to check it out at DMVSTREAM.COM. And with that, we will go into some of the recaps that we have today, and I'll start it off with the game between Gonzaga and Bishop O'Connell. This is a big-time WCAC matchup, and Gonzaga was coming off of a victory over Georgetown Prep, one that they kind of cruised to the victory, and this game was a little bit more difficult for them. As you can see, Gonzaga's Chris Lykes scoring. He had 24 points in the game, and the Miami commit was the leading scorer for the Eagles in their victory. You see him hit another shot there, and he's really one of the guys that's just a big-time facilitator for them. And another guy who's been a big-time scorer for Gonzaga is Prentice Hub, number 3. He had 17 points, and he's been averaging close to 15 points on the game for the game in the season. So just, Coach, tell me a little bit about the combination between Chris Lykes and Prentice Hub and what you think they can do.
Well, both great players, a classic WCAC matchup. I was at that prep Gonzaga game, And there were a lot of people there. Obviously, Like is going to University of Miami. He's probably a leading candidate for Player of the Year in the DMV. But to have Hub and the other weapons he has around him, very impressive to watch those guys. And whenever you watch a WCSC matchup like that, there's tons of talent on the floor.
Right, and we'll go into our player of the game for that matchup, which we mentioned earlier was Chris Likes, the Miami commit, who had 24 points, so a big day scoring for him, 3 assists and 3 rebounds as well. So he got into it a little bit on the assists and the rebounds too. And we don't want to leave Bishop O'Connell out because they played really well too. They've had a couple of close losses, but they're a team that really just doesn't give up, and they're a team that really fights to the end. So we'll give a shout out to Bishop O'Connell, and we'll go into the next game, which was Whitman versus Bethesda Chevy Chase, and this one was an interesting matchup in Bethesda, Maryland, where Whitman actually had to come back from a deficit. They were down 14-2 to start the first quarter, and they finished the first quarter down 18-7. As you can see, Bethesda Chevy Chase coming in and getting the and one right there. So those were some huge plays for Bethesda in the first quarter. But as you can see there, Alex Sanson hits the half-court shot to end the third quarter, and that was a huge momentum shifter for Whitman as they were able to come back and get the 57-49 victory, and Alex Sanson led the team with 18 points. So, Coach, just tell me a little bit about what it's like when your team gets down and how you have to come back from that. What would you tell the players?
Well, I've certainly been in that position before. Anybody that's coached for any length of time has been, and you really just have to kind of focus on segments of the game and not so much on the scoreboard. Let's focus on the next possession, the next 5 minutes. You don't want to look up the scoreboard too much. That can be overwhelming. But it also takes so much energy to come back from that type of deficit. How many times do you see a team fight all the way back and then struggle to get over the hump and take the lead? So it is impressive to fight back from that kind of deficit just to make it a game, but to make it a game and then win it. And obviously Sanson's half-court shot. How many times also do you see end-of-quarter plays either way can really kill your momentum or really carry you, and I'm sure that definitely gave them a big emotional lift.
Right, like that play by Sanson, the half quarter, that certainly gave them, I would say, enough energy to go into the fourth quarter and be able to pull out a victory in a game where they might not have had that energy if that play doesn't happen. Right. Sometimes you get the emotional energy of that shot, and you can see him hitting it there, and he finished with 18 points in the game, our player of the game, as well as 2 3-pointers, including that half-court shot.
A nice follow-through there.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And we will go into our, we're going into another commercial break. Alrighty, and welcome back into the Prep Zone. We're going to get right back into it with some more recaps as we've got the Bishop Ireton versus Bishop McNamara game, another big-time game in the WCAC, and another close one as well, as Bishop McNamara able to get the and one shot there. They played really well in this game, but Bishop Ireton was able to come through with the 66-63 victory. And in the game, Bishop Ireton had 4 players who scored in double digits. And they were Jamie Pasha, Darius Hines, Ethan Lynch, and Jordan Beckett. So, Coach, well, when you have players who are able to score in double digits like that, and you got so many versatile scorers, how much does it help a team?
Well, tremendously, and we talked, a couple of the sophomores we talked about earlier are carrying a big scoring load for their team individually and trying to get others involved. And when you have 4 options out there that can score, again, it makes you tough to defend, it makes you tough to scout who you're trying to stop. So without a doubt, that's big to have 4 guys in double figures.
Right, and getting into some of the Bishop McNamara highlights, you saw some of the Mitchell twins, who we talked about a little bit earlier, and they have had a huge game. So just even though they lost this game and they're going through a little bit of a development stage, how big is it to get like these lumps out of the way so that you can get ready to start winning when you get more experienced?
Well, it's huge. I mean, to have a pair of 6'9" sophomores getting, quality experience in WCAC basketball games bodes well, not only for later in the season, or not only for later in their careers, but certainly for later in the season. I would expect, Coach has higher expectations for them once we get into February and beyond, and then certainly for the future. But to have 6'9" bookend sophomores like that is a luxury many coaches would like to have on a high school level.
Right, absolutely. And now we'll get into our player of the game for this one, and that was Bishop Ireton's Ethan Lynch, who had 13 points, including 8 of 13 free throws made. And this game came down right to the wire. So there were a bunch of free throws that they absolutely had to have in order to come through with this one. So we'll give a shout out to Ethan Lynch. And with that, we'll go into our next recap, which was Bladensburg versus Richard Montgomery. And this one featured a matchup between 2 superstars in Zaire Mitchell-Payton of Richard Montgomery, as well as Daniel Oladapo for Bladensburg. And Bladensburg came out and they were very aggressive in this one. They played really well, and Daniel Oladapo led them with 22 points, and they were able to come away with the 67-62 victory in a tough one. Also, Javante Sterling and Sherwin Devonish finished with 12 points each. So they played really well. And give a little bit of a shout out to Richard Montgomery as well. They had Jay-Sean Hawkins, who finished with 28 points in a big game for Richard Montgomery, even though they lost. So we'll go into the player of the game for this one, which was Daniel Oladapo, who had 24 points and 10 of 13 on free throws. So just, Coach, tell me a little bit about how huge it was for Daniel Oladapo to have such a big game.
Well, because his name sounds like Victor Oladipo, he's got to be a good ball player, and his field goal percentage there was outstanding. So clearly very efficient on offense. So not only did he put up points, but helped their whole team offensively. And if you look at the analytics and offensive efficiency, I'm sure he scores very highly in that area.
Right, and we've got to go quickly now. We'll get into our previews, and we've got a big-time game between West Potomac and WT Woodson. Both of these teams only have 1 loss on the season, and they are led by their guards. With West Potomac, they're going to be led by their senior guard, Khalil Williams-Diggins, somebody that we've talked a little bit about earlier in this broadcast. He's averaging 16.1 points per game, and he scored over 20 points in 3 of his games this season. So, Coach, just what does Khalil Williams-Diggins mean to the team?
Well, everything, along with his backcourt mate, who we already talked about, Daryl Mackey Jr. To have 2 guards like that, who can put the ball in the basket and run the show, and they'll try to force the tempo, distribute the ball, they can take care of it. So everything starts and ends with those guys. And I say that, and West Potomac really has a lot of pieces. When you look at personnel, whether it's Serge we talked about earlier, the Belfield brothers, They've got kids that come in off the bench, Brandon Lisenby. They've just got a lot of weapons and a lot of balance. But Woodson's a very good team as well. And Woodson has a tremendous tradition of success, and so these kids go into their school expecting to be successful. You see Agner there, a good shooter, has 16 threes already. He's the son of the former women's coach at George Mason University, so he's got good genes as well.
Right, Jason Agner is one of the most absolutely lights-out shooters in the DMV area, and he's definitely a big-time player. And again, Khalil Williams-Diggins, who's averaging just over 16 points per game. He's got the 13 three-pointers, and he's shooting 70% from the free throw line. So I'd expect this to be a very good matchup, one that you'll definitely want to go out and check out if you're in the area. And with that, we will go into the Purple Puck Tournament, which is going to be broadcasted live right here on DMV Stream on their Facebook page. And you can see some of the teams that are going to be featured in this tournament on Friday. And I'd expect this to be a very fun, very interesting tournament. Gonzaga was able to come away with the Purple Puck Championship last year in 2015, and I would expect this, and I expect them to do everything they possibly can to make sure that they defend their title. So it should be a very interesting one, and again, you can check it out live on Facebook on December 30th. And with that, that'll just about do it for us on the Prep Zone. I'm Brendan Randolph, and thank you very much, Brian Doyle, for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Yep, and we will see you guys later.